Hi peeps. It's dusk, look. Gorgeous. I'm out with the pup on Milo's field. Do you like my hat? I couldn't find my cream hat anymore, so I made myself one. Crocheted it myself, made the pom-pom. This is probably my last video because I go and have my operation on Thursday, only for a few weeks maybe. But you know, I don't know how long that's going to take to get over. Sorry. But trigger warning again, this is video 7 on domestic abuse and awareness and identification. And I said after the last one that I was going to talk about the me leaving, because as is usual with people in domestic abusive relationships, not many leave once and don't go back. I believe the figure is quite massive really, and I always thought, I was trying to think about how many times it was for me, because I always thought it was a lot, you know, because it probably felt like a lot at the time, but to be honest I think it was possibly about 4 or 5, if that really. I know I pissed my family off because of going back, not because they were mad at me, just because they were desperate and they couldn't understand it. And that's the other thing I was doing, thinking about trying to explain it to people. I don't understand it myself a lot of the time of why I went back. Some of it was fear, like I said, fear of what they said they'd do. But I told you about one where I went to my friends and I didn't even stay away for the day because he came knocking on the door and I went back. Then there was a time I told you about, went to my sister's down in London. I'd gone and stayed at my mum's and he was there every morning, 7 o'clock in the morning, so he'd be there when I was going to the school with Dan, and he'd follow us around town, me and my mum and things like that. So I actually went down and stayed at my sister's, but then, as I've said in an earlier video, I went back on a whim, if you like. Yeah, I don't know. I can remember thinking at that point, I must have been in contact with him at some point, and thinking nobody's going to love me the way he loves me. How deranged is that thinking? But he'd convinced me, you know, of this all wonderful love that he had for me, that nobody else was ever going to love me that way. Cheeky get. Who do you think he is, that nobody else was ever going to love me that much? And you know, so that was part of it. Again, it's that mind control that he had over me. And then the major one that I really don't understand myself, well, I've got an idea of why I went back, was I left him. How I did it was, the kids went to school, I took the kids into school, he waited in the car, and I might have told you this before, I went out the other side of school and got on the bus, absolutely petrified, terrified that it was going to find me. Once I got on the bus I felt safe. I'd had to squirrel away £1 here and there without him knowing, because I was never allowed money, so you know, I just kept bits of change here and there when I'd gone to the shop with him, and you know, whatever, and that's how all I had was my bus fare really. But this time was after Neil had walked out, or Neil had actually walked out in his pyjamas. We were having murder and he'd locked me in the bedroom and stuff like that, and Neil had stood up to him, and I was terrified for Neil, to be honest with you. And Neil ended up, he had no money, nothing, and was in his pair of shorts and t-shirts. Luckily a friend of ours was at the train station, and well, actually it's not luckily, because he didn't realise at the time, but he let him on the train, and Neil actually went to his sister's house, my best friend, and he realised then that it was Neil. So I was always very grateful that he did. So Neil had gone to live with my mum. and yeah, it was this time. Rachel was at her dad's. So there'd been a time before this where they'd gone and got left and come back again. Yeah, actually, I do remember now. And Rachel and while Neil was living with my mum, and Rachel and Dan had come with me, but Rachel had rang her dad because she didn't want to stay. It absolutely broke my heart. And Colin came and got her, and I'm banging on the car, crying, asking them not to go, and I rang the police thinking the police could do something, but Rachel was of an age at that time that she could pick where she wanted to live, and she didn't want to live with him, and I don't blame her, you know. So she went to live with her dad. So I'd left with me and Dan. There was just me and Dan, and you'd think this was going to go the whole hog, because this time I went to a solicitor. I got an injunction against him. I'd stayed at my sister's. Now my sister had bought a house while we'd had no contact, so he had no idea where my sister lived, so I was quite safe. Not that I really went out, but you know, he couldn't come and sit outside the front door this time. And yeah, I got into solicitor, got an injunction. I had to go to court for the injunction. It was with the power of arrest because of his behaviour. So if he turned up, which he did, you know, he was above the law. Then they could arrest him on site if he was anywhere near me. And I eventually got a council house as well. I got a little job cleaning, thanks to a friend of mine, and it was all going really, really well. And I can't tell you how I even got in touch with him then, because I didn't have mobile phones and stuff like that. I've got no idea what happened, whether he came and I can't remember. But all I know is I had this house, and 7 o'clock one morning he came to get me and Dan, and I went back. I gave up the council house. I had to ring the solicitor because we were about to have decree nisi, which after that is decree absolute. It was all going through, and I went back. And if I'm honest, I think I truly went back to say, see, I'm not what you said I was. I can achieve things. I have got a house for my kids. It is lovely. I have got a job. You know, I'm coping and I'm managing without you. You know, it wasn't in my head that I coped and managed for 30 years before I met him. It was just I had to prove to him. And again, I still think I was of the mind that he'd been scared enough that he was going to lose me, that I'd gone this far, that things might change, you know, and he told me they would, and of course they never. And at this point, Rachel's living with her dad, Neil's living with my mum. They're allowed to come once a fortnight, and I have to sit out in the garden and speak to them. They weren't allowed in the house. And eventually I was so desperate, absolutely desperate. I was dead inside, totally and utterly dead inside. I said to Rachel one day, would you please, when you next see your gran, ask her have I burned my bridges, or would she, if I get the guts to go again, would she let me come and stay? And Rachel came back the next time and said, Gran said, you were always welcome there, Mum, always. And I said, okay. So for the very last time I started thinking about leaving, started squirreling a bit of money away. I ended up on the day that I left that I had £10 to my name, because I knew I'd have to leave and what we stood up in. So I'd said to Dan in the morning, as I've said to you before, he was a big gambler, and he used to go and gamble in bookies where he'd go out of the area, and he'd give me a couple of quid. That's where the odds came from, actually. A couple of quid to go and look in the charity shops and things like that to keep me occupied while he's gambling, but it'd be away from somewhere so that he knew I couldn't just do a runner, or thought I couldn't. Well, in the meantime, he'd started going to Hoylake to a bookies there, so I'd looked up in the A to Z where the train station was and it was just past the shops. So I'd said to Dan in the morning to put a couple of his favourite toys in his bag, in his school bag. And sure enough, we picked Dan up from school and we went straight to Hoylake. And Dan's getting out of the car and I'm saying, get your bag. And I didn't want him to hear because I didn't want him to ask why I was doing it. And Dan didn't get his bag. So he didn't have any of his school stuff and he didn't have the toys. Anyway, he goes into the bookies, gives us all a couple of quid, and me and Dan start walking up and I tell Dan what I'm doing. I'm going to go for the training. Dan's 8, by the way, at this point, 8 years of age. And we get to where the shops stop and I absolutely shit myself. Panic sets in. And I'm like, I can't do it. He's going to catch us. If he sees us once we've gone past these shops, he'll know I'm not just, he'll know I'm doing something. I can't do it, I'm panicking. Oh, Dan, at 8 years of age, grabs my hand and says, come on, Mum, you can do it, Mum. Come on, Mum, you can do it. Without that child, I may never have got away and I could be dead now. Or he could, well, he is dead, but, I could have knifed him or something in sheer fear. He just kept saying to me, come on, Mum, you can do it. Once I got into the train station, I relaxed a little bit because I didn't think he'd look there. I didn't think that'd be the first place he'd look. I think he'd just think I'd walked off the beaten path somewhere to try and get a bus or whatever, or just, because I'd done that before. So I did relax a bit, and then once the train came, I truly relaxed. As I say, we literally left a mop we stood up in. I had £10 and chain in my pocket to get the train fare. And we got the train to Hampton Square to my mum's. People said to me at the time, please let us know if you're going to go back this time. They were disappointed that it hurt my mum and they didn't want my mum hurt again. But for some reason this time I knew it was done. I knew that I wasn't going to go back. So I didn't try and sit and convince them. I didn't try and tell them, oh, this time's different, because I knew that's what they'd heard before. I knew in myself, so I just thought, right, I'll just do it. I'll just show them, I'll just do it. And I did. From that day to this, I've been a free woman. Not without its ups and downs still then. He still tried to cause trouble for me and still harassed me and hassled me and did tactics to he found ways to get my phone number, which is like there was friends that were both of our friends who I thought I could trust who came to visit me. And I took her home thinking I could trust her, and she said, give us your number, thinking, she wanted to stay in touch and stuff, and she gave it straight to him. And I'm there in bed one night and he rings with his, hello, Ellie, which the kids will know what I mean. It was just, and I was like, how the did you get this number? And then it just dawned on me. Still following me. I went to the job centre at one point and he I'd given him my mum's landline number at the job centre and didn't know he was sat behind me and had got my mum's landline number. They're crafty and conniving and just to try and harass you to get you back. But I never went back this time, thank God. It was different. I did try and have some sort of counselling, but it didn't work. Things that worked were much later on. I'll tell you them on a different video. Not that it didn't work, it just wasn't right for me, I suppose, the counselling that I was given. And I had tried the women's refuge and stuff before I'd gone, and that hadn't really, I was only ringing them, but they'd sort of put the fear of God into me, saying, oh well, if you can, try and bring some food with you, because it's one thing that we're short of. And I didn't even have the money at that time when I'd rang them to get there, never mind, and then to go in the house and start taking food out, and he might catch me. I left him while I stood up in. So it just frightened me all the more, really, to be honest, at the time. So what was meant to be happened, you know, and you know, I did get away, but I will talk to you about more about how I got over that, because I struggled and suffered with the ramifications and the after effect of that for a very, very long time. And that also leads me into talking about alcoholism, because that's something else I was going to say suffer with. I don't suffer with anymore. I did, but I am still alcoholic. I always will be, but I am in recovery, and I do have a program that helps me to stay sober and sane. I did suffer very badly with it, and so did my family and people around me. So that is another thing of Elle's experiences that I want to talk about, because the after effects of domestic abuse did play a massive big part. They didn't make me alcoholic. I'm alcoholic because I'm allergic to alcohol, but they did play a massive part of my excuse for drinking. Anyway, I shall leave it there. I'm going, because it's getting dark, and I'll take that pup back. It's a bit scary. Come on, pup. And I shall hopefully be able to do another one before Christmas, because I'll have my operation and it won't take me too long to get over that. At least that recovery is getting, just healing from an operation, not being really poorly like I was last time. So hopefully I won't take too long to build myself back up this time. Hope so, because I've got Christmas coming on, and I love Christmas. I have a lovely Christmas, everyone, if I don't speak to you before, and a peaceful one. You know, anybody who needs any help regarding any of this, as always, just send me an inbox. You don't have to talk to me on the phone or physically if you just want a little bit of advice, or even just of where to go. There are loads of places now. There wasn't when I was leaving. Loads of support. Yeah, just drop me a message. It's a good life once you get away from that sort of shit. And yeah, I'd help anyone. Thanks for listening. Yeah, have a lovely Christmas. Bye bye.